Greetings, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and welcome back to another video. A few weeks ago, a screenshot from a TikTok blew up on Twitter. And since then, it has made up like half of my timeline. It is everywhere. Either the screenshot itself or the quote taken from the text on the screen, which is, "That one friend that's too woke." And this started off being used in a like pretty reasonable context. It was used to like criticize and like kind of poke fun at some very genuine like leftists that were so woke they were conservative, you know what I mean? Like they go so far left, they end up being right. Like it's a fucking circle, not a line. And they went so far one way, they ended up on the other. And I think that, that is the intention of this quote. That is how this should be used. It should be used to bring light to, people who are saying stuff that is like, no, you think, like you somehow were like overthinking this to the point of like actually being racist when you're trying to be anti-racist, or you're saying something that you are trying to like be a feminist but is actually wildly misogynistic. Like that is where this phrase would be, best used. However, it has taken such a twist and has been used for like literally everything. And is like diluting a lot of actually very good and important things to be saying. And we're gonna get into all of that. That is what we are doing today. But before I do get into it, I would like to say a massive thank you to today's patron of the day, Lady Nutbar. I appreciate you and your support so much. Thank you so much for joining. If anyone else would like to become a patron, you go to patreon.com/savvycat or click the top link in the description. I have been posting a bunch of like travel stuff and things over there recently, and there's a few like vlogs and such that you can also buy like individually if you don't want to become a member but you want some of that extra content that is there for you, and it starts at £1. So if you're interested, go check that out. Anyway, now that my shameless self-promotion is over, let's jump into some ways that this phrase has been used, what I would say correctly, on Twitter. Some ways that like, yeah, I think this was valid to say and point out because what is going on here? And we're gonna start with this tweet, and it is the Wicked poster, and someone tweeted with, "A movie where a black woman with green skin is going to learn how to be beautiful from a white woman with blonde hair. Black people, do not take your daughters to see this." And someone retweeted with, "Okay, this is actually a pretty good example of friend who's too woke," which, yeah, I feel like this is a very valid place to be pointing that out because, like, firstly, that's not even what the movie is. That is not what the story is about. There is, like, one moment in the movie where she's trying to make her be popular, and her way of popularity is, like, through beauty and white privilege, which is the main conversation of the movie. It is not a white woman teaching a black woman to be beautiful, and that is the moral of the story. That's actually kind of the opposite of the point. This is a friend who is helping her friend in the only way that she knows how, and this friend has like white privilege and rich privilege and is using that because that's just something that she has. That's all that she knows. And that's sort of the conversation. And I feel like if you're completely erasing the very important actual like moral discussion of the film and telling black kids to not go watch this movie, you're actually taking representation away from them. You're actually like hiding an important message. Like the commentary very much is talking about white privilege and wealth and beauty and the likes, and what that looks like and how that impacts you and overcoming that, working through that, etc., etc. Saying that the movie is about a white woman making a person of color beautiful is a severely gross understatement of what is actually going on. You are being the friend that is too woke here. You're going actually the other way and against your point of, I think this is a very good film to watch with good representation and important messaging. So, did you even watch it? Like, are you getting all this from a photo? Like, Calm down, please. Another example of where it's used well, or well, it's not even used here. I'm using it here. I am quoting this person saying, "You're the friend that's too woke." This person tweeted a music video. I don't know whose music video. It's not linked and it doesn't say. And it's this rapper, and behind him he has like these like plus size women of color as they're the backup dancers. They're like fat women and like they're dancing and they look happy. And this one person tweeted, "You can call me too woke or whatever, but seeing all those beautiful plus size women dancing and having fun in the music video made me so damn happy." This is incorrect use of too woke, but we'll come back to that soon. And then someone quote tweeted that with, "This is so performative to me, knowing what his wife looks like." That that is the too woke take. You know what I mean? Like, you can't hire fat women if you are married to a slim woman. That is obviously performative. The only way that is acceptable for you even to interact with a fat person is if you are married to one. Otherwise, it's just fake. You don't actually care about them. Like, I'm sorry. Sorry. I do not understand. Please explain to me how we got there. You see a man who made a music video with just like fat woman in it, and you're like, but you're married to a thin woman, so like, how dare you? How dare you? If you really cared about fat women, you would have married one. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? How is this helpful? In any capacity. Why do you think that you can only think fat women are beautiful and worth existing if you are married to one? Like, how is this a helpful take for anyone? Like, we're out here asking for representation and you're here like, but you're not actually, we actually don't want representation. Please don't give any representation unless you are fetishizing them. And I say that because like, clearly fat women aren't like his exclusive type. You know what I mean? If he was married to a fat woman, that would have been fine. But if he would like only date or marry fat women, if that's like his exclusive type and he views fat women as like this like sexualized, fetishized thing, wouldn't that be worse? You know? Like, I don't know. I feel like just viewing fat people as people who are worthy of dancing because they are just people and they're allowed to be in music videos, like, I feel like that's a completely valid take, and I feel like we should be encouraging that, not getting mad about it for literally the stupidest reason of all time. You know? All of that aside still, this is a take I have, and I don't know how many of you will agree with me. Let me know your thoughts on this. But even if it is performative, who cares? This is something that I'm not going to get into too much now because I want to make a whole video about it. But I personally think that performative representation is so much better than no representation at all. Like, firstly, you can't prove that it is performative. Secondly, like, even if it is, these women still got a job. They still got paid. They got to be in this music video, and other fat women who are watching this get to see that they are being they get to see that they're being represented, and it's normalizing fat bodies to people who maybe don't view them as normal. Like, regardless of whether he is doing it to get views or not, I honestly don't think it matters. Like, sure, is it better to do something with good intentions? Yes. Does it really matter that much when the representation is still happening and is still good? I don't think so. I think that sometimes like forced representation and things definitely matters. Like, if you're bringing in like a gay character just to kill them off or like make fun of them or like whatever, then like no. But I do think that performative representation is better than none at all. I'm gonna make a video about it later, but let me know your thoughts because those are mine. And I also just don't think you can prove that this is performative, and saying he's married to a thin woman really doesn't prove anything other than you being really weird about it. Friend that's too woke. So against fat phobia, you're kind of fat phobic, you know? And then we have this other friend that's too woke, used once again correctly in the way that it should be used, where it makes sense. Sabrina Carpenter wearing a headscarf, because she wore a headscarf in one of her music videos. And someone said, does anyone else find the fact she's wearing a hijab without being Muslim weird? And the worst part is she's hella disrespectful by wearing those clothes too. And she's wearing like togs. What's the not Kiwi word? Like a swimsuit. I just find this so funny because like it's things like this that are so performative. Like you're looking at a woman wearing just a headscarf in a music video, and immediately you jump to, I need to go on Twitter and talk about how weird that this white woman is wearing a hijab with a swimming costume. Like, have some critical thinking for 2 seconds, okay? Who do you think you are helping? Who do you think you are helping with this tweet? What is this going to accomplish? Surely before you do that, you should at least Google, like, headscarves for fashion. You should at least have some sort of knowledge before tweeting it. Like, it feels like such a thing of like, oh, I'm gonna go on Twitter and get people being like, oh my god, they pointed out such a good point. You're so right. You are like the savior of fucking Muslim women, hijabi women, because you've pointed out that this white woman is wearing a hijab and no one else has, even though the music video has millions of views. Like, use your brain. Please think before you speak. Thank you. Now, I suppose we've gone this far and I haven't actually shown you the original TikTok yet. So we're gonna watch the original TikTok now. The reason is because I feel like these examples were all good examples of it being used. And I feel like the original TikTok is kind of like a weird sort of blurry line of it. So it's gonna be like in the middle of these two things, which is funny considering it's the original, but you'll see what I mean. Let's watch the TikTok.
Y'all. Who wants to go to the Four Seasons Orlando? Me.
How's that funny?
It's just a meme, girl. Relax.
Am I the only one that don't find that funny?
Pretty much. That video is hilarious.
Like, how y'all sitting here cackling and giggling about some Four Seasons Orlando when we about to go to war?
Here she go.
Please. How many of y'all even registered to vote? Me. Oh. I was not
Friend,
so
you know I'm
anymore,
working on my green card, please.
Like, we got 2 people in office, and it could go either way, and they both don't look like good choices, but y'all kiki and laughing talking about some Four Seasons Orlando.
She going in.
I'm
Michelle,
bugging.
Relax. It wasn't that deep.
I went to the grocery store the other day.
Wait, I was with you that day. You just got Takis.
And cranberry juice. And why the cranberry juice is $7?
Damn.
No cran mango, no cran apple. Just cranberry juice.
Ooh, and that one be sour.
I don't even know what our future looks like. You get what I'm saying? Hey, the laws is being passed, da-da-da. Wake up to find out we the new slaves because we cackling and laughing about Four Seasons Orlando.
Am I the only one that hears that music? Oh my god, no, I heard it.
I guess I'm the only one.
I was confused.
I don't find it funny. This just makes me the last of the kind breed.
And I find this TikTok super interesting because I understand what she's saying and I do agree with her. I do agree that despite everything that is going on, we still deserve to feel joy and live our own lives. Like, I don't think it helps anyone where you deny yourself joy and make yourself and everyone around you feel guilty for things that are outside of your control. Like, I don't think that is helpful. I think that, like, damaging your mental health is not helping anyone. However, I think that, like, starting this off with, like, immediately being like, war, I think kind of makes light of situations, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like this would have landed better if we started off with the grocery thing, or I thought it was going to be like, didn't you hear that Four Seasons Orlando did this one thing 4 years ago? Like, someone died there 4 years ago, so we can't support them. Like, that would have been a bit funnier. It would have been a bit lighter, you know? And I understand that in a real life context, these are possibly the things people are bringing up. But, like, if people are, you know, changing the topic to talk about the situation in the world and how they're feeling bad about it, they probably need a little bit of, like, emotional support and some help and, like, talking through what's going on and, like, actually sitting down and having a conversation about the tragedies that we are all exposed to on the internet. Like, we see so much happening all the time, and it is a lot, and it does damage a lot of people's mental health. And I think that it is important to, you know, talk about those things and, like, work through those things as an individual. Like, if it's mentally impacting you, like sometimes you do need to unpack and have that conversation. And I don't think it's healthy to make everything about that, and to stop living your life when there's something that is completely out of your control. But if it is impacting you so much to the point where you can't, I feel like you should be a supportive friend and offer some help for it rather than like rolling your eyes. You know what I mean? So I feel like this would have landed better if we were talking about slightly lighter sort of issues. Like, they're all very important. Like, the high price of groceries and things like that, those are important issues, obviously, but they're like less detrimental. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if you're like, let's go for the Four Seasons Hotel Orlando, and you're like, but like, milk is so expensive. The gas prices are so expensive. You know what I mean? That would have been a bit funnier. But ultimately, I do agree with the sentiment. I just don't agree with like war being the butt of a joke. You know what I mean? Like, you get me? So yeah, that's the original TikTok. Valid point, poor execution, I think. And yeah, so I think that like we all need to care about things, and I think it is important to care about things and to discuss things and have conversations, but I also think it is important to live your life. And I think that being like, not everyone is able to live their life, so it's not fair that I do. I don't think that's a helpful way of viewing things, and I don't think that's a helpful way to live your life. Like, you have the opportunity to do things and to enjoy things, and I think that like you should be taking advantage of that, and you can do that whilst also caring about things. Sabotaging your own life and not allowing yourself joy and feeling guilty all the time doesn't actually help anyone. You can't help anyone if you aren't helping yourself. Like, these are all true things, and you will be of more help if you are also looking after yourself and enjoying your own life as well. Now, because of the discourse of that I just had, I completely understand how this made it onto Twitter, and even just the screenshot without the TikTok. Like, I so get how this made it onto Twitter, considering Twitter is like 90% discourse and people just saying shit, as all the tweets we've already talked about. Like, people just come on Twitter to say shit. And it's a place, you know, like it's a place that exists and people say stuff. And so obviously this blew up, and it is everywhere. It is everything. You see the screenshot itself like in the quote retweets of a bunch of stuff. You see people just tweeting it in quote retweets, or you see people tweeting a lot being like, not to be the friend that's too woke, but, you know, as it was used as some valid commentary, and it still is occasionally, it's obviously veered a little bit away from that because it's become more of a meme, and it is now sort of used instead of like, not to have basic human empathy, but and it's really frustrating when you put that before saying a very valid point. All it's doing is diluting the point, and I think like actively playing into conservative hands. Like, it is taking away something that is important and like completely valid and like just a normal thing to believe, and implying that it's a very progressive, very woke take to have. So I'm going to share some examples with you, and you'll understand what I mean about this having become a little bit of an issue. Someone tweeted, "The diva who wore live fish in her shoes for a pageant, sister no." And someone quoted that with, "Y'all are so annoying. Like, it's a goldfish. Relax." And then that was quoted with, "Not to be that friend that's too woke, but animal cruelty is still animal cruelty, even if it's a goldfish from PetSmart." How are we saying that animal cruelty being bad is a take that is too woke? Like, I feel like we didn't need that statement there. Totally could have just started with, animal cruelty is still animal cruelty, whether it's a goldfish or not. Like, adding that first statement, they're like, not to be too woke. That's not a woke take. That's not a progressive take. That should just be like a standard, normal take that everyone has. That is a viewpoint that if you do not share it, you are a bad person. Like, the person who quoted, "Y'all are annoying, it's just a goldfish," that is a bad person, and they should not be allowed animals. Diluting it down and saying like, not to be too woke, is then just normalizing people who think that it's okay, because it's implying that thinking it's okay is a very standard take, and thinking that it's bad is like too woke, you know? And I understand that it's like a meme, but it's playing so directly into this like hand of trying to make all of these like morally correct views into being extreme, even though they are just neutral. That is a bland ass take. And if someone disagrees with you, they're a bad person. They're just a bad person. It's not woke to think that putting fish in a shoe is cruel. Like, my God. Next up, we have this tweet that just says, not to be that friend who's too woke, but incest is weird and makes me uncomfortable and generally gross. I'm sorry, but I'm really going to need you to explain when thinking incest was wrong and gross became a take that is woke, let alone too woke. Because once again, I thought we were all in kind of this like general agreement that incest is like not okay. It's not a morally good thing to practice. So I don't really know how we got to this place of calling it too woke. Claiming that incest is too woke is playing directly into the right's hand, as like all of this time they've been claiming that the left and the progressives and woke left and whatever have been pushing normalizing incest and bestiality and pedophilia, etc. And so by calling it too woke is implying that like it is woke to be a supporter of it. And none of that is true. Advocating for any of those things does not make you woke or progressive. It actually makes you quite the opposite of that. I don't even know if it makes you the opposite of that. It puts you in a whole separate category that makes you just like, again, like a bad person. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's a shared belief from like the left or the right or conservatives or liberals or whatever. It's just a subsect of people who are like separate, who hold that view. It is not like a political alignment. It's like a fucked up thing with them. Being against it is not like a political affiliation. It's just makes you someone with like basic and bare minimum morals around consent and sexuality. In saying all of that, I'm not trying to imply that like incest, bestiality, and pedophilia all sit at the exact same level of morally wrong. There is obviously a little bit of ambiguity to incest. I can't believe I'm about to have a whole conversation about incest here, but I know I'm gonna get comments about it. So I just wanna have a little bit of a discussion about it really quickly here, okay? Because the problem with all of it is like consent, right? Like kids can't consent, and animals can't consent. That is why those other two things are wrong. And with incest, it's a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more complicated. There is the consent issue of like a lot of the time when like incest occurs, it's between people who have known each other their entire lives. And I think that incest holds like a lot of varying degrees depending on what the relationship is, how old they are, how long they've known each other, etc. Like a lot of the times with incest, there's like a weird power dynamic of like an older person and a younger person. And like, even if they don't get together until adulthood, they've known each other their whole lives. And there's always been that like weird power dynamic between them. I think in general, like if you've been raised with someone your entire lives, I think it's really weird to then enter a romantic relationship with them. It's just a really weird dynamic for a romantic relationship. You know what I mean? Like it's consent, I suppose, but it's really, really weird. Then you have obviously the issues of like biological issues with having kids and whatever. And so like there's varying degrees of consent issues within incestuous relationships. And I feel like it gets more appropriate the further removed you are from each other. Like if you were cousins who never met before and then you met when you were like 30 and you fell in love, like if you know your cousins, I think it's a bit weird, but I don't think it's terrible. You know what I mean? Like it makes me feel icky, but like, you know, there are worse things in the world. The only instance of like incest that I think is like completely morally okay is when it's like people who have no idea they're related. Like they have no clue at all. They meet, they fall in love, blah, blah, blah. Then they take like an ancestry DNA test, find out they're related, and they're like, fuck. I feel really bad for those people, honestly. Like there's stories of like twins who were separated at birth who then like fall in love, get married, and then find out they're fucking twins who are separated at birth. Like, I find it hilarious that they were attracted to someone with like 50% of their DNA. Like, that's fucking hilarious that they like found each other, this person that looks so similar to them, and they managed to fall. Like, that's funny to me. And I feel really bad for them, like, if they find that out. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with staying together if you're not gonna have kids or whatever. That's my view on incest. How did we get on this whole entire round? I don't know, but this is this is where we ended up. I just knew people were gonna comment on it. So overall, not too woke to be against incest, okay? I think that's a pretty standard take to have. Incest is icky, and there's a lot of blurry lines and consent issues that exist around it. Okay, now that we agree, we can move on. This person says, am I the friend that's too woke, or is this literally not funny at all? And it's in response to a photo of a girl, and behind her is a little boy who is like crying on the floor. And it was captioned, first day of school pic, hashtag proud stepdaddy, Tommy and Sarah. Excuse Tommy, had to whip his ass this morning. And like, no, you are not being too woke. You are not the friend that's too woke. And by asking that question, you are then opening the door for discussion about this being okay. Like, by saying like, am I too woke? Is this take like a little bit too woke, or is this not funny? Like, all that's doing is allowing like people who think it's funny to come in and defend the fact that it's funny when it's not. You need to cut that shit off right away. Just say, this is literally not funny at all. Because it's not. Because it's not. There is nothing funny about child abuse. You should not joke about hitting your child. You should never hit your child. You should never joke about hitting your child, whether you do or don't. Like, even if you didn't, even if he was not physically hit in this photo, even if that didn't happen, joking about it is fucked up. That's not an okay thing to do. It should be just like a generally universally agreed upon fact that that is not a funny joke. And like, I understand anxiety, right? On the internet, like, I get it. Do you know how many of my tweets sit in drafts forever because I don't know what the general consensus is gonna be, which is hilarious because all of my videos are just me sitting down and chatting shit and like sharing my opinions. But for some reason on Twitter, I feel more pressure, which makes no sense because I have so many less followers there. But like, I understand having an opinion or a thought and being like, what if this isn't the general consensus? What if I'm in the minority with this thought? And like, that's a scary feeling on Twitter, especially just because Twitter is such a violent place. Like, if you fuck up, you're being dragged through the mud. So I get it. Understand the urge to be like, am I crazy or is this not funny? Like, I get the urge there. I understand the anxiety. However, I think you do have to like think it through and realize that anyone who would defend this being funny are not the people you want the validation for. Like, if there's anything you're going to be dragged through the mud for, I feel like being dragged for being against child abuse jokes is probably a good thing. We need to think about things before we say it. Stop diluting these important statements by turning them into questions and like opening up the floor for bad people to come in and think that their opinion matters. Not to be that friend who's too woke, but I was working some pretty high profile jobs before coming out, and now I have to hide that I'm trans to even land a fast food gig. Getting a job as a trans woman is one of the hardest things to do. And it includes an image of America's transgender wage gap, and it shows the wage gap between like all workers, all LGBTQ+, trans men, non-binary, gender non-conforming or two-spirit, and then trans women at the bottom earning 60% less than the average worker. Again, with maybe the anxiety thing coming through here and not wanting to be attacked for your own real life experience. But you do not need to water this down. You do not deserve to water this down. This is not okay. This is not a too woke stance to take. This is a real thing that is really happening to people, that is really happening to you. And it does not deserve to be watered down into a like, it's too woke to think this. I think like that again implies that the like baseline, the woke take, the normal progressive take is that this is okay. And that's just not true at all. I think that like it is an issue and we should all agree with the fact that the trans wage gap and you have to go back into the closet to get a minimum wage job, like thinking that that's a problem, that is not too woke. That is not too progressive. That is just something we should all agree upon. And if you disagree with that, once again, you're just a bad person. This needs to be talked about. And it needs to be talked about seriously, like being said with our fucking chests. It needs to be a conversation. It needs to be something that we like work through and try to deconstruct. And it's going to take a lot of work, obviously. And it's going to take a long time. And that's disheartening and it's horrible, but it's not something you can waver on, you know? It's not something that you can like question, or at least like it can't come across as a question. It needs to be said strongly and people need to listen and people need to talk about it. Again, with this too woke being used in relation to just trans equality is once again playing directly into like the right conservatives' hands of just like anything to do with trans people being a step too far, you know? Like it's playing into the idea that like trans people existing, that is too far. Trans people going into the closet, that is what's normal. That's what we should be doing. You want to talk about the trans pay gap? You want to talk about being out as a worker? That's too far. The left have gone too far. That's too woke. That's too progressive. No, we need to not play into that idea because that's fucked up. It's wrong. And we are trying to like counteract that. Calling that take too woke is something that Matt Walsh would do, you know? And like, even as a meme, we shouldn't be like quoting Matt Walsh while talking about our own issues, you know? Say this shit with your chest and I promise people will stand with you. So this is a screenshot from a TikTok that says, me on my way to start an argument with my boyfriend because I'm bored. And someone tweeted it with, not to be that one friend that's too woke or whatever, but this is just openly saying you're emotionally abusive to your partner. Okay, this is one we actually do need to talk about because this stance is like so upsettingly normal. The like, on my way to start an argument with my boyfriend because I'm bored, like that is said so regularly on Twitter, on TikToks, whatever. Like this sort of energy of just wanting to like start shit for the sake of starting shit and like manipulate your partner is so normalized. I think that there is such an issue with the way we talk about abuse towards men from women. Like it is joked about way too much in a way that I think is like also very real. I think because of the way that it has been like joked about and memed about, like people genuinely don't realize that this is emotional abuse. Like it is not okay to be just going and starting fights for no reason. It's not okay to be emotionally manipulative towards your partner and to just like hurt them for the sake of hurting them. Like that is abuse and it's not okay and it's not funny. And I don't think it is a too woke stance to think that and to point that out and to point out that that is an issue. Emotional abuse or just abuse in general towards men is not highlighted very often to the point that like a lot of people don't believe men are capable of being abused by women. And that is a dangerous fact. That is something that like a lot of men stay in abusive relationships because they think that it is just like a normal thing to be happening. They don't realize that they are able to be victims of abuse because male abuse is not talked about very often. I don't necessarily think that that is the responsibility of women to be doing. I don't think, you know, we need to like drop everything and make every single conversation about men because, you know, that's how it's always been. I don't think we need to like stop advocating about like abuse and violence towards women because that is incredibly important and that deserves to be its own conversation and it is its own conversation. I just really wish that like men would open up the conversation about abuse directed towards them as well, instead of just in argument against like women talking about our abuse. You know what I mean? Like the only time I ever hear men talking about abuse is when I'm sitting here being like, women get abused, and men are like, men get abused too. It's like, yeah, I am aware. I talk about that, obviously. Could you please go also talk about it and advocate for other abuse victims as well? Like, you know what I mean? It's such a thing. It's so annoying that like we're expected to kind of talk about everything and everyone all the time. It was like Men's Mental Health Day the other day, or International Men's Day or whatever the other day, and like men were online being like, and where are all the events for us? Where was our parade? Where was our event? And it's like, bro, that was on you. That was your job to organize. Who organized Women's Day? Women did. So like, why are you complaining about men's mental health day? Like, you're meant to plan it. If you want something to happen, you have to do it, you know? Take responsibility for yourself. I'm just like rambling right now. Ultimately, what I'm trying to get at is that we need to talk about abuse when it comes to everyone. It is not too woke to point out what is abusive, regardless of the gender. Abuse can happen to anyone. It can happen in any form. Abuse towards men is very normalized and like viewed in a very comedic way. It is used as comedic relief a lot. And it does need to be talked about and it does need to be discussed. And in saying all that, I'm obviously not saying that like it is not normalized towards women, because it absolutely is. It is used as a joke constantly as well, but it is an issue. We do need to talk about it, and I think that a lot of men don't realize that they are being abused or don't think that they can be, and they're afraid to reach out for help because other men are going to laugh at them. Men are made fun of for being abused a lot, and that is on men typically. So men, get your shit together and start helping each other out, and advocating for, you know, other men. Not in a men's rights activist kind of way though. Like, don't be anti-women to help men. Just like, you know, point out what is and isn't okay in a relationship and like offer help. And yeah, I don't think it is too woke to think we should call out abuse jokes and letting people know that you are concerned about them because they're in a situation. So this one went pretty viral. This one went pretty massive, so you may have seen it already, but someone tweeted, just read Cynthia's full name out loud and my bed started floating. And I'm not going to read her name out loud because I have no idea how to pronounce that and I do not want to butcher it. It's a very long African name, obviously. And someone quote retweeted that with, not to be that one friend that's too woke, but is this not a racist joke? And like, I don't think pointing out racism is too woke. I just don't think it is. And I think that like what you are saying and pointing out the fact that that's racist is a perfectly reasonable thing to do without having to dilute it down and turn it into a question. You know? Like that is racist. It's making fun of someone's name, like someone's name that is like culturally important, and also like African names have been made fun of for forever and they continue to be made fun of, obviously, and like turning her name into like a joke and being like, ooh, witchcraft, magical voodoo, ooh, is just like, it's very inappropriate and it is racist and it deserves to be pointed out as being racist. Phrasing it as a question undermines the fact that it is just an incredibly racist statement to make. It like, once again, opens the floor for people who find this funny to come in and be like, you're taking it too seriously. You are that one friend that's too woke. Like, it's just a silly joke. Lighten up, blah, blah, blah. You know, because like, you're leaving it open-ended. You're being like, friends, guys, is this not racist? Because then all the people who are not racist will come in and be like, obviously not. Obviously it's not. You're not telling them they are. You're saying that maybe this one thing is possibly a little bit racist, you know? And I think making it into a statement of like, this is a racist thing to say allows less wriggle room for people to come in and try to like defend the joke, because they are being directly like called racist, and even by defending it, they're defending them being called racist. You know what I mean? Having it as a question means that you aren't calling them racist. They're coming in here being like, no, it's not actually, you know? Like, it's harder to argue against a statement than it is a question. So those are the posts really that I have saved from today. The Twitter search function is horrific now. Like, it is so hard to find anything. The search terms don't work. Like, it's fucked. So there were other ones that I wanted to include in this that I forgot to screenshot when they came up. So all of these were just found under the very broken Twitter search that I can do now. But I hope the point got across. You know, there seems to be, we're at this like point in the meme where like it has now like reached its peak and people have started being like, okay, fun's over. Fun's over. We're not gonna do this anymore, and having the same sort of conversation that I have. Hopefully it comes to a halt soon, because I'm sick and tired of it, and I just don't think it's helpful, as we've established from this entire video. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the friend that is too woke meme. Please let me know your thoughts, like what you think of its original intent, where it is now, like whatever. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. But yeah, this has been my findings, this conversation I've been wanting to have for the past couple weeks, so I'm glad that I was finally able to get it out of my system and share it with you. If you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I put out new videos twice a week, so I would love to see you again soon. A massive thank you to my Sprout and Above patrons whose names are up on the screen right now. I appreciate you greatly. And a huge, huge thank you to my Kiwi Cat patrons: Bobby, Ikazel, Ellie, Chris, Samuel, Knitting Menace, Radsack, Lady Nutbar, Mr. Noodle, Ella, River, and Phenomenally. I love and appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for joining. If anyone else would like to become a patron, you go to patreon.com/SavvyCat or click the top link in the description. For as little as £1 a month, you get made videos a day early. And then for £3 and up, you get things such as outtakes, bonus mini podcasts, live streams, vlogs, and more. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, The Queer Kiwi, and Twitter, That Queer Kiwi. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Keep fighting. I love you. Mwah. When you close your eyes.